Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com. Hello, and welcome to another TV recap at Voices from the Mausoleum. Join with me again is the fabulous Chris.
Oh, stop it.
Who has been a regular now here with me doing these TV recaps, and it's been an absolute blast, so thank you again for doing this.
Absolutely. I'm just happy I have somebody to talk about shows because a lot of people just avoid shows sometimes. Shows are my favorite thing. I get to binge watch them. I don't have to just concentrate for a full 2 hours on a movie or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these shows that are being released these past couple of years, I mean, we've done a couple so far. They're doing a great job.
We've been covering some bangers.
Absolutely.
I was very excited for Monarch. I do like the MonsterVerse. I love Godzilla in general and sort of all the kaiju fun. But was Monarch something that you were looking forward to from the get-go?
I didn't even hear about Monarch until you told me about it, if we're being honest, because
right.
I never had Apple TV. I was never a thing like a fan of paying for Apple TV. I have so many other platforms. And then you were like Monarch, and then I watched the trailer and I was like, yep, that's what I need to watch. And when I watched it, I was like, thank God I watched this. I was like, thank God I listened to the recommendation. This is incredible.
Yes. It's so much fun. And I know Angel was sort of nervous about it as well because she loves all the monsters, the MonsterVerse. But you know, something that Angel was worried about, and it sort of happens in the show, is that not a lot of monster action. There is,
I agree. Yeah.
There is monster action, but it is solely focused mostly on the humans.
Absolutely.
But that being said, I think I messaged you and I said, this is the strongest human story we've had in this universe.
It's incredible because they really touch on everything involved in this universe. And they do such a great job of telling the story. And I know some people are turned away with the past, present in some shows and stuff like that, but I actually like that because they are matching it up with the past and present. We've had shows where they tried to do the past and present, but it's like completely different time frames in the past and present, where they're so spot on with, hey, this past is relating to this current present.
Right.
And they do a great job explaining every little detail. There's not really a lot that I've questioned in this show because they do such a great job of detailing what you need to know.
Yeah, it reminds me of Lost flashbacks because that was a show. I mean, say what you will about the finale and all that good stuff, but I enjoyed it. But it has its naysayers. But that show did a really good job. It's sort of like you have the flashback, and that's going to tie directly into whatever the character whatever's going on with them in that moment.
Yep.
With Monarch, it's even tighter than that because it's so focused on just these core groups. And there's a lot of, I mean, the title legacy of monsters, but it's also sort of this family's legacy, right?
Absolutely.
The family, and it's very focused on family. So the past and present really makes sense here because we have this direct lineage.
Yep, and it's connected beautifully.
Yeah. So in a general sense, you have Kate, and she's sort of our POV character.
Yeah, she's like the main character. If you think about when you start from the first episode.
Yeah, she's our pilot character, or sort of the vehicle through which she carries the story, and then it branches, and I feel like it becomes much more of an ensemble. But she's sort of our entry character.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job starting with her because they are basing it off of the Godzilla movie, the San Francisco stuff, and they went right off of that, which was perfect. It's a great leadway because you're like, this movie came out, we're gonna make this show starting from right after that movie, and they give you all the backstory prior to that movie even happening. So I think Kate was a good choice to start.
100%, and I love that we get the sort of the geopolitical ramifications, the real sort of like, what does the world look like after a kaiju attack?
Yep.
I say kaiju. I know that's not what we say in American. These monsters, a monster attack, but kaiju is used. Power Rangers, they're kaiju, right?
Exactly.
It's all, So anyway, big monsters.
You
But
call them whatever you want.
I'm gonna call them kaiju. But yeah, so so what really happens in the aftermath of this big catastrophe?
Mhm.
How did you feel about how they handled Kate's PTSD?
Um, I think they did a I think they kind of, in my opinion, skipped it just a little bit,
Hmm.
as you would think, because I think this was supposed to be just a year after. So you had the
Hmm.
Godzilla in 2014, the G Day that happened in
Yeah,
San Francisco. So this is supposed to be 2015. I feel like they jumped it just a little too quick, and they really didn't touch a lot on it. Like, there are different parts in different episodes of them kind of throwing it back to it,
yeah,
but I feel like this series just kinda really jumped into, like, "Hey, we're doing storytelling, this is starting now,
yeah.
and you're going to Japan, your dad died." Like, that, or your dad's missing, whatever it was, and
Well, they think he's dead, right?
they didn't really
So yeah, no,
touch
it
that
definitely sort of
much.
comes and goes, right? Sort
Yeah.
of the symptoms and but I mean I like that they at least touched on sort of the trauma around it because it's
Yeah.
not just trauma, it's also grief.
Yeah.
It's grief and guilt, right? So what we know about Kate is that her and her mom, want answers regarding her father Hiroshi, who is missing, presumed dead since G Day.
Yep.
And so they have this key to an apartment in Japan. So she flies off.
Just Kate.
Just
Mom
Kate.
sent her
Mo-
out there and was like,
Yeah, mom
"Go for it."
is. I don't know if they say this in the pilot, but mom is living in sort of these like survival camps, these like
Yeah,
little makeshift homes.
because she's the, she works with FEMA.
Mhm.
That she's part of, like, the FEMA Red Cross stuff. She's in charge of helping with all of that, but
Yeah,
they did show that very well, of just showing kind of the scenario that they are in. They didn't touch crazy on it because you do know in a couple episodes later, they do touch more onto how San Fran is actually surviving after
yeah,
this giant attack and everybody almost dying. Um, so that's kinda how they just led into it.
yeah. So Kate's on this sort of sojourn, this journey into Japan, to Japan to get an answer. And so we get a little bit more of how Japan handled the attack, right? Even though
Mhm.
it wasn't like San Francisco, but we see like evacuation plans and all this stuff
And the
all over.
sirens.
Hmm?
The sirens.
The
Yep.
sirens, and like these alerts, and so they're super prepared for a possible attack. But yeah, so she ends up at this apartment where she sees pictures of her father with another family, and it's
Completely different family. Full family. Not even just one woman, just a full family.
no, wife and son.
Yep.
So he's got a wife and a daughter in America and a wife and a son in Japan. So he's working double time, this Hiroshi.
Yep. And
Two
busy man while
very busy
also
men.
investigating monsters. Crazy.
Right, working for Monarch, having two
Yeah.
families. It's a busy life for Hiroshi.
Yep.
Yeah, and so there's sort of this like immediate like shock, right? What was interesting was like immediately, her half brother Kentara, his mom sort of wants answers, right?
Mhm.
She kind of embraces her almost like
Yeah.
immediately, just like what's going on, and then Kentara's a little more, um, heated about it. And Kate's very like embarrassed, sort of
Absolutely.
shocked. And so you get this sort of clash of like three almost completely different reactions to the situation.
Mhm.
What do you feel about that dynamic? The dynamic obviously changes as the season goes on, but sort of
Yeah,
the initial
it
tension.
definitely changes. But you could tell that Kentaro just felt, what's the word? He just felt, like, I feel like he felt embarrassed for Hiroshi that this is
Yeah.
happening, and he's just so fuming at his father, and he's taking it out on somebody that he doesn't even know, just met. And then just Caroline's reaction is completely different vibe, and you just kinda sit there and you're questioning because 'cause you're like, "Why is she so okay with this?" Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't know her either. Why is she so okay with this?
Yeah.
And it kind of gets your gears turning in your head because you're like, did she know more? What is going
Mhm.
on? What, like, how did this happen? Why is there so many different reactions to this?
Yeah, yeah. I think, right, it's sort of, whether it's shock or shame or just or anger or sad, right? It was just sort of I think on top of it is just wanting answers, right?
Yep.
Um, but so Kate kind of sort of leaves. She's like, okay, there's nothing here, and she calls her mom, right? And so she's like, she's ready to just go.
Yeah.
But then Kate, I think I don't remember if it was before or after Kentaro sort of uh gives her like the office keys and stuff. Um, she's approached by Tim, right? So
Yes.
Tim from Monarch, who he wants to know sort of like, he's in, well, was it after May? I can't remember.
It was after May because I think the first time they met Tim was after they already had those files.
Because they got pinged, right?
They had the
So
files.
so Kentaro, kind of proposes that he brings Kate to Hiroshi's, their father's office, and they sort of look around and kind of gather clues. I think they get the files, right?
They get a ton of stuff. They
They
get
get
the files, yeah.
computer software, hardware, and then Kentaro has his friend, girlfriend, sort of
His
romantic
connection right now.
connection, May,
Yeah.
who's this what do you call it, expat. She's from America, but she's living in Japan. She's like got a
Yep.
hacker. She's super smart, and she's going to look into these files for them.
Yeah, I think she's like I think what she was is just a
Coder,
coding, like, yeah,
yeah,
a coding specialist kind of deal.
yeah. But she's got like sort of like your typical coder hacker kind of
Yeah.
apartment. It's just like
Every
hardware and everywhere.
every hacker you see in any movie, that's exactly what May looked like.
It's it.
Just so many
Um,
computers and screens and just numbers and letters. That's exactly what May looked like.
totally works though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as she's looking into it, right, it pings Monarch that the files have been accessed from the
Yep.
computer. So off to Japan they go, and so Tim's sort of this like bumbling sort of. Well, at first we don't realize how sweet he is. He just sort of is like trying to get to know Kate. We don't know if we could trust him or not. And then I think Duval's with him
Yes.
at that point, right? They're trying to get Kate and figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
I think the kid, right? They take her in the car,
Yeah. Well, they like half kidnap her
half
because
kidnapper.
she got out, so they
She
like
got
half
out.
kidnap her.
Well, the car crash, right? I'm trying to. It's been a
Yeah,
minute since I watched the
Tim
pilot.
just didn't. Tim is the kind of character that you got like that odd love hate relationship for,
Yeah.
because you're like, wow, you're kind of like really mean and a jerk, and what are you doing to these people? But at the same time, he's like gives off that like teddy bear vibe, and you're like, I don't know how to feel about you.
Oh.
Like, I don't know if I should hate you or not.
Well, down the line, he's sort of the one that points the finger at Monarch, right? And kind of
Absolutely.
points out their like all the hypocrisies and
Hmm.
the contradictions, and he's sort of like, this place can be better, you know?
By the end of season one, you loved him.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I loved him
His
after.
arc's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
But yeah, so they're sort of trying to get them to kind of go along with the plans with Monarch, right? Or try to figure out what's going on, and like they know what, more about Hiroshi, or what are they trying to
Yep.
figure out. But yeah, so from there, I'm trying to think of like what the next. I know we're not going episode by episode,
Yeah.
but in broad strokes, then they get the file, and I think that's when they sort of figure out that they have to go to his office and no, I'm sorry,
No, no, no.
Shaw.
This. Yeah.
So they figure, so it leads them to Lee Shaw, who's in a like retirement home.
No, you gotta, because we're jumping way far ahead.
Oh, okay.
We gotta, yeah. We are you? Did you want to do like present first, like all present stuff, and then we go to the past?
Yeah, I mean, like, so
We could do
we
it that way.
can. So I guess, all right. So what we can kind of do is, while this story's playing out, we get our flashback.
Hmm.
Just generally is like, so we get Keiko, we
Hmm.
have Bill
Doctor
Randa.
Keiko.
So Bill Randa is their grandfather.
Hmm.
Uh, Keiko is their mother or grandmother.
Grandmother.
And then we have young Lee Shaw. So Lee Shaw, was it Colonel, Lieutenant?
Military man, army
Military.
man.
I'm so bad with like remembering what.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know he's definitely lower in the scales, but he's not like just your standard like infantryman.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of power.
So I know. So Keiko is sort of teamed up with Lee to start.
Mhm.
right? Like she needs like an escort to go into, I forget what country it was, to
They were in, Kazakhstan
Kazakhstan.
because
Uh,
that's when they discovered those, the giant, because like, in the first episode, they really just introduced you to the 3 of them
mhm.
in the flashback, and that's when they were discovering those, like, giant, monster eggs
It was the
and stuff they
eggs,
were
but it
doing.
was in the it was the ship,
Yeah, in
right? It
the,
was in the
no, I don't think the ship was there because the ship didn't have the eggs. The
in the
ship had,
mhm.
uh that's when actually, Godzilla was came out. Or no, it was the one creature.
No, it
Who was
wasn't
it?
Godzilla yet. Godzilla wasn't
No,
until I
I
thought the test.
it might have been like, yeah, he might have been that. So I know they were in Kazakhstan and they had, I just know they were doing the giant insect eggs.
Yeah, so I mean, they were investigating these monsters, right? They were like there. I know there were reports and sightings, and
Mhm,
like things going off on the Richter scale, and they're just sort of following these patterns around the world of what's going on, and so so Keiko and Lee, they're together, and they run into Bill Aranda,
mhm.
who's sort of just he's the explorer. He's in there, and
Yep.
I mean, we could quickly mention that we get Bill Randa as John Goodman as Bill Randa at the very beginning of this
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
He's recording a message on the camera on Skull Island before he leaps into the ocean.
Yeah, which I thought I liked because, I mean, you gotta include Skull Island. It's to the point where this
Hmm.
whole entire monster universe is just turning into, I mean, one of the biggest movies is Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
Because you always have Godzilla as such a strong monster, but then when they introduce Kong and you have these 2 just beasts of monsters going at it. And I like that they did include the fact that, if I remember correctly, Hiroshi's briefcase that they found was
Hmm.
actually the one that was dropped into Skull Island.
Yes.
So it was his case with Skull Island. So that was the first connection we had to Skull Island and the Kong universe section of it,
Oh,
which I loved. It's just little stuff like that.
the little
Um,
connections. Yeah.
yeah, that was the best part, but and that's I just double checked my notes. So when Bill, they're in the Philippines
Philippines. Okay.
because the whole thing was that Dr. Kiko and Lee was escorting her to the Philippines because they wanted to investigate some of the isotopes.
Yes. Upset.
And obviously, you could tell from the start, Lee has no really idea what's going on. He's part of Monarch. He kind of gets a vibe, but he he was the one who was originally shocked that, let alone Dr. Kiko is a doctor, but also
Mhm.
the fact that she's a woman and she's an Asian woman, and Lee couldn't believe that at first.
I mean, this is like not long after World War II. So,
Yeah,
you know,
because this is the
so
50s.
so racial tensions, like just all that stuff is still raw and like really intense at the time. So,
Yeah, and that's when
um,
they met Bill because Bill was just doing his own thing in the same exact woods, just
yeah.
looking for the isotopes. Like,
So
what are
Monarch
the
really
odds of all
isn't.
3 people looking for isotopes at that time and just bumping into each other?
That's how you meet
We'll
someone,
take
right?
it.
Isotopes.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, so Monarch really isn't really a thing at this point. I mean,
Yeah,
it's sort
correct.
of just it's a one person, becoming a three-person exploration.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I know they come across these insects, which I thought were all in the ship. They come across
Yeah, I think the insects were in Kazakhstan, the eggs.
the eggs,
The episode where they meet Bill, that's when they find the ship,
right?
and
Okay,
that's when they encounter their first
that's right.
Titan.
Because it was one creature in the
Yep,
ship that was sort of
that
like,
was destroying it.
so it was them really discovering that these monsters are real.
Yep.
Then we sort of that's sort of the first episode flashback part of it. But fast forward, right, we learn that we have a much older Lee who's in a senior living facility in Japan,
Yep.
right? And then they
On,
link
like,
up
house arrest,
under house arrest.
and then you
So,
have questions because 'cause you're like, "Why is he under house arrest?" Because,
yeah,
like
yeah. So pretty much yeah. So then Lee leads them, and I like this sort of relationship of like, you knew our father, you knew like what's all this, there's sort of starting to uncover. But I like, I love it. You still can't necessarily know if you can trust. Anytime they introduce someone new in the show, you're like, can I trust that
Yeah,
person?
can I trust you? Like, just because Lee is in the flashbacks
Mhm.
with their dad, with their grandpa and their grandma, doesn't mean that in the time frame something didn't happen with Lee that would cause turmoil and
Mhm.
destroy everything. And you're like, do I trust this man? Like
Yeah.
he's okay in the first episode in the past, but what has happened in this time frame that could
Mhm.
have changed something else?
Absolutely, right? Because we're talking like, and I don't know if they pointed out just yet, but they sowed the seeds of this big like, if he's if he looks like that now, he would look much older if he
Yep.
was young in the 50s. So
Yeah.
something weird is happening with him, and I love that they
It took
showed.
me a second to realize that, but then I was like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
they call it out explicitly in the show too. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
remember.
they finally. I don't think they do it until like. I think it wasn't until like episode 8 until you find out what really happened to
I mean,
him.
find out the truth later on, but they
The
even the
truth.
characters are like, he should be much older.
Yeah, and like
Yeah,
these, and
I love it.
side note to that whole thing is the casting. Come
Mhm.
on, like how spot on was that? They're like,
Well,
yeah, we're gonna
how
get
often do we
Wyatt.
get a father-son playing, the same character that.
And you have to do it, and it's two
Yeah.
phenomenal actors. That was a no brainer on their point.
The only
And
example I could think of is they did the Sopranos movie with, Gandolfini's son.
yes, they did do that.
That's the only other example I could think of. I'm sure there might have been others.
And these two just are so identical. This is exactly like I've seen old photos of Kurt Russell, and Wyatt is an exact replica of his father. And
Yeah.
I think the casting for that was they have the same mannerisms, so it's something where they don't even have to act; they just have to be themselves. Like just
Mhm.
read the script. You guys are the same person, and I think that was just such a power move on their
Yeah.
part to just get both of them going on the actual show.
And I know that the acting nepo babies have gotten flack lately, but I think Wyatt's a really good actor.
I agree. I've loved him in everything he's been in. I mean, when he
Falcon
was
and the
in
Winter
the
Soldier.
incredible. He's
Yeah.
a good actor. Like, leave the nepo babies alone. Come on, I don't
Uh,
care. Leave them
I
alone.
mean
If they're good, leave them alone.
we've gotten, Jack Quaid's a nepo baby. I think he's really good. Wyatt's
I
good.
agree. Jack Quaid was getting a lot of the hate recently. I've seen, and I'm like, just leave him alone.
Oh, he's so good.
I think he's an incredible actor. So
I
I really loved this casting. It was a
Yeah.
smart decision, and it made everything run very smooth.
Yeah, no, it was really cool, and yeah, like you said, the mannerisms, like, they were clearly playing the same character,
Oh,
um,
100%.
which was so cool, but yeah, yeah, so they end up with Shaw, I know we're just, again, just doing kind of broad strokes here, but, sort of, and I think that's sort of when sort of leads them to Antarctica, right?
To Alaska.
Alaska, that's what I meant,
Alaska.
Alaska
Yep.
first, where now I forgot the clue piece that leads them there,
They had the map.
the
They
map that.
had the wait, was the map then or was the map when they were going back to Kazakhstan? The map was actually when they were going back to Kazakhstan.
Mhm.
So Alaska, I think that was Lee's choice. I can't remember why they went to let me see if I have it somewhere.
Well, so I know that the one office led them to the San Francisco office.
Mhm.
So I don't know if it was San Francisco that was next. Hold on, you know what I'm gonna do, just to make it easy for us. I'm gonna go on at least the episode order for myself, and I'm gonna just go on
Yeah.
my
I'm
TV
trying to
tracker,
double check
which is
where the
so funny.
Alaska thing is while I'm looking
Um,
at my notes.
yeah, I have my TV time TV tracker. So it's a great. So I don't pay for this. They don't pay me to advertise it, but it's actually a really good app, and I just use it to
Okay.
track all my episodes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they go to Alaska first.
Yeah, they do go to Alaska, and that was you just
So they're
can't.
looking for Hiroshi in Alaska. He thinks they're heading that way. And so this is really sort of leading into our first big kaiju event, right? So they see this Hiroshi's crashed plane.
Yep.
Um,
They have the tent, or Kentaro sees the what is it, like a hut,
yeah, just sort of
basically.
like the fort shift, the
They could
makeshift.
tell that there was a
They were
human
survivors.
here. There
Yeah.
was a survivor here.
And then I know that there was a Monarch base there as
Mhm.
well. But while they're there, they get this ice kaiju attack.
That thing looked phenomenal. That was the
This was
coolest look. All the monsters in this look incredible, but that one,
It's one of
That
my
one.
favorite creatures
Oh my gosh,
from
it
this
looked
universe so
awesome.
far.
It looked incredible, and
'Cause
what
the
a
way that it
ride.
killed people too,
Oh, yeah.
just, like, sucking the heat, like, right oh, man.
It's so crazy because, like, people like, movies get so, like, big budgets, and I
Mhm.
can't even imagine the budget for this show.
I don't know
Because
what it cost each
we
episode.
especially because, like, you've seen the Godzilla movies and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
have seen how great we have gone up in CGI for Godzilla looking. So I can't even imagine how much money was put into the show because this CGI is probably one of the best CGI I've seen in a show.
For
These
this
were the most
franchise too,
realistic.
and for the show in general, right? Because these really felt like mini movies, like, at least the quality,
Oh,
right?
yeah. That's how it was. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, the CGI was not lacking. So I can only imagine how well, 1, if we get a season 2, how long it's gonna take and how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
I
I'll
hope I
take
hope
it.
I hope it did I don't know the numbers that it did. I hope it did well when
I
it
agree because
premiered.
I need a season 2. You can't just stop right there.
Yeah.
You have to do something.
And what's great with this wasn't a binge show,
No.
unless you chose to wait. Like, this was a week by week, and I think because I bet the first 5 episodes, I think, aired together.
Yeah, because I think that's about when you told me about the show.
Yeah, because I
About
binged
5
the
or
first
6
half,
episodes. Yeah.
and I was like, "Ooh, this is fun."
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "You gotta watch this, we gotta review this." Um, and then yeah, and then it was like 5 weeks of just week to week.
Yeah.
Um, then, of course, I think I fell off because of the holidays or something happened, I was like, "Okay," then I had a couple to binge, but
Yeah, which is nice. It's nice to get a couple in the binge,
but
but
week to week releasing is great, I think. I mean, I sort of missed that from regular television back in the day just because it built the hype.
yeah, it does build the hype. Like, I'm a hit or miss. It really depends on what show I'm watching.
Depends on the
Like
show.
this, I would love to just sit down and binge. I
Yeah.
don't know if I would do a full week to week, but there's other shows where, okay, I can wait a week. But I
I think it
prefer
depends,
binging
right?
because I forget about shows. Like if they said week to week, like I said, I just watched the last episode last night after we'd already planned that we were gonna do this. I was like, wait a second, I didn't even watch that episode.
So funny. But yeah, no, but so Alaska, I think, lasts like 2 episodes. So the first episode is sort of like investigating the crash site and the this the camp, and then them surviving the attack.
Yeah.
And then I think that right then doesn't Kentaro kind of get knocked out for a little bit? He
Um
gets lost
No,
looking.
so what happens is they battle. So prior to going to Alaska, they got stuck at the border at
Hmm.
customs for everything because Monarch's looking for them. But adult Lee Shaw had that connection over at the border patrol who got him out to give him that helicopter to get out. Because remember that guy takes that helicopter, gets killed by the Titan
Right,
during the
right.
helicopter thing. And they don't technically even defeat the Titan, they just escape the Titan, is what happens. The
Hmm.
Titan's still alive, then that's the moment where they all separate. So you have May, Kate, and Lee who are like, no, we're going this way. And Kintaro's like, no, when we were on the helicopter, I saw this over here. I'm going that way.
Yeah.
And that part made me nervous because I'm like, why are you separating? Like this ice breathing thing just tried to kill you guys, and you're like, you know what, Kintaro, you go for it. You go look for that in the middle of Alaska. It's freezing.
Yeah. So he's like
And that's
hallucinating out there.
yeah, he was hallucinating. He like fell and he was just hallucinating in the snow.
Hmm.
And you're like, what is happening? You're like, is he okay?
And then yeah, so I know that they find yeah, they find like the Monarch base there.
Yeah, I think the three find the Monarch base. Kentaro finds his father's little thing that also had a radio
Yeah,
that he was using, and that's how they ended up getting rescued because Kentaro uses the radio to call for help.
that's right.
And that's when they come in for that.
They comment for that. And so the flashback part of this, it's pretty much, Keiko, Bill, and Lee trying to convince the military for
Yep.
funding. To like, okay, so this is a thing. We found a monster.
Yeah, because I think that's actually when that was after they had the footprint. They
Yes.
had that footprint, and that was gonna be their real selling point other than the standard, like, gamma radiations that they were getting, they're like, "Oh, we have a footprint, this is perfect, the government will fund us so that we can try to
Mhm.
capture and study these creatures."
So now was this the episode with the test, with the nuclear test?
That is the same thing when they get the funding from the government
Yeah.
and they want to do the test,
Mhm.
and obviously the military had different thoughts and didn't care
They just
because
wanted to blow shit up.
that's literally all they wanted to do.
They was like, "Let's blow shit up."
I hope Godzilla's under that water and we're just gonna blow him up and this
Yeah,
will
this is a
never happen
global threat.
again."
Okay, we're gonna,
Where you have
so
Bill, Lee, and Kiko, who truly just want to study this and study the movements and
yeah.
find out. And I think the way I see it is that, though, especially Bill and Kiko, I think deep down they knew there was going to be other monsters, because if you remember, they had a completely different monster attacking them on the ship that they
Oh,
filmed.
yeah.
So they know that there's more than that,
Mhm.
and I think that's why they wanted to just study and keep track of everything to get to the bottom. They're looking at the whole picture, where I
Yeah.
felt the military who's giving them funding is just like, no, this is the thing that's causing all the issues. That's the only thing. We're just gonna blow it up,
Well, they
not knowing about
realized
the.
that these isotopes, right, and all these things were popping up in different sections of the world. So there's a
Mhm.
connection there. There's a puzzle.
Yep.
And then so rather than solving the puzzle, the military just wants to shake out all the pieces and just, you know,
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, fire a nuke at it.
You know what? That's all they wanted to do. They're
Um,
just like, we're just gonna take this hydrogen bomb and just blow them up.
well, what I loved, and I know you mentioned connections to Skull Island, but I love that this footage of this test was in
Yep.
Godzilla 2014.
Yep.
It was the flashback stuff, and it was always sort of mysterious, right? Because you're like, wait a minute, where is this footage coming from? Is this the first time Godzilla is here? Like what?
Yep.
And I sort of love that we get this like story representation of that footage, and like there is much deeper history here.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's sort of going on in that sense. And now the Monarch has everyone kind of.
And then
They
just prior to that, though, too, we do have to remember that while Lee, Kate, and May were in
Mhm.
Alaska, they were staying warm, and they did start burning files of Hiroshi.
Oh
So
shoot.
they did start burning those files, and that made me nervous because I was like, Do we have copies of this, guys? Like, I
Right,
know
they're
you
just
need
doing
to.
it.
I know it's like survival mode, but like,
Yeah.
do we have that?"
Well, May had copies, right? May
Yeah,
had the digital. Yeah.
May had the digital stuff, but it still like makes you nervous, and you're like,
No,
all right,
absolutely. You're like, oh, okay. We're just sort of yeah, throwing the
yeah,
baby out with the bathwater there. But
yeah. But
now
then
we're sort of
Monarch takes him
leading.
in.
Was that?
Monarch takes him in.
And then Monarch. So, but now we're leading into sort of the San Francisco part of the story,
Yep.
which is really cool. I mean, we talk about sort of the repercussions of G Day. I mean, we're really seeing the ruins of this city. We get a little more of Kate's mom, who's introduced to Kentaro, and that's a whole moment.
Yeah, because
Um,
that kind of broke my heart because that was when Kate introduced her to him,
mhm.
and that's when you find out that the mom knew something was going on. She sent her out to Japan to find out more. She knew that. I felt like her mom had knew that Hiroshi was not even there
Yeah,
in Japan, not at
she just
all.
didn't want to deal with it. She just wanted
Yeah,
someone to
and
tell her
she
what was
was the one who really forced her out there to Japan and, like, urged her to go out
going on.
because she knew.
Yeah, she knew. And you no wonder why Kate's a little messed up. Just beyond G Day, right? So I think this is also where we're getting Kate's flashbacks to
Yes.
G Day. She's a school teacher. She's on the bridge, and loses a busload of kids.
Yeah.
Like like I can't imagine.
Right on the Golden Gate Bridge.
right off right off the
Right
Golden
on it.
Gate Bridge,
Yeah.
like losing all these kids. On top of that, having she has this relationship with another teacher.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we find out Kate's gay, which is exciting.
Yep. That was so exciting, and I think actually the backstory is I think Danny was the teacher first, and I'm pretty
Mm.
sure Kate met her as a student. I think it was like college student situation. I'm pretty sure
Uh,
that's what the story was. She was like a college professor, Danny.
yeah,
So it was nice that they did touch into that because I felt like it definitely explained more of how Kate is as a person. Like,
sure,
look at
yeah.
all she's gone through. She just lost a bus full of children, and right prior to G Day is when they broke up and they had a falling out
Mhm.
because Kate was cheating.
Yeah, yeah. Kate's been sleeping around with other women,
Yep.
clearly not happy in her current relationship. A lot of, and that was prior to the trauma of losing the kids, and then it's sort of all
Yeah.
compounding, right? And so while all that, this big tragedy happens, does Danny die
I think Danny died in G Day.
in G Day? I think so.
I'm pretty sure, and all these yeah, all the flashbacks, she started getting the flashbacks because after she was annoyed by her mom finding
Yeah,
out everything, she made her mom use the, FEMA status to get them in over there because they knew that Hiroshi had another office within there in the G-Day section.
yeah.
So she basically told her mom, "Hey, like, you did this to me, now you have to help me out."
This almost felt like the side quest in a video game where
That's
they're sort of sneaking around the city, don't get caught by the San
That's basically what
Francisco.
they were doing in the FEMA, like, Red Cross section. They were just being sketchy while all these people are just trying to recover from G-Day.
It was almost like when you're playing MJ in the Spider-Man video games when she's just sort
Yeah,
of sneaking around and
just sneaking around everything.
but they go up to his office, right? And they discover
The
this
map.
map through and it was a reflection, it was the sun coming through the glass, right?
Yeah,
And
they used the sunrise for it.
yeah, and they used the sun and sort of highlighted all of the isotopes or these markings, right? I don't know if we know that they're the isotopes yet at this
Yeah.
point, but all these places around the world have been marked.
Yep.
And then so I think they realized like, okay, that we were in Alaska, they were in, Kazakhstan, or they were in, all these places. So, yeah, so they get that, and then they go back, right? And it's sort of like they've achieved their mission, and now they sort of have a plan.
And then I think right at the end of that episode was when May starts being shady
And
because
then
that's
May,
when May calls
yeah,
Monarch because she just wants to go home. And it sounded like
hmm,
she was like ready to make a deal. And then that's when, once again, you get your gears turning because you're like, what is she doing? Why does she have a direct line to Monarch? What is
hmm,
happening? Because Monarch, throughout this whole entire series, they just want the information that Hiroshi has. Monarch's, to me, the present Monarch is also another love hate relationship
yeah,
because Monarch is seeing the full picture. They don't want to lose the world. They will do everything they can to prevent another G Day. But then you have the other people, like I'm assuming Hiroshi, when he was in Monarch, he wants to study these things and really just end it as a whole and is trying to say, hey, there is more than just Godzilla out there. There are so
yeah,
many monsters. We can't just prevent a G Day when you can have a Titan Day where you got 75 monsters attacking the world. You can't. So Monarch's like one of those love hate right at the end, and you're like, I don't know
yeah.
which way to go. Like I do want to protect the whole world, but at the same time, you want to know what's going on.
I mean, I love it because this is right between Godzilla and then God of Monsters,
Yes.
and so it's like you're clearly like they're. I mean, we know that Titan Day happens, right? We know
Yeah.
that sort of all these Titans come up and it's this whole big battle, right?
They don't know it in the show though. They
They
don't
don't
know.
know.
They don't know
Well,
that.
what do they say? It's dramatic irony. We
Yeah,
know more than the characters know, so it sort of
correct.
creates a tension in a different way. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think Monarch. It's like it's like yeah, Monarch's got its improvements it needs to make. We'll say.
Mhm.
So yeah, from here, I know that the next episode is the ball, where in the flash. So it's the flashback where they're still trying to sort of like get the military on their side, get
Yep.
be treat, be more recognized for the work they're trying to do within Monarch. But we see Keiko and Lee's relationship getting really close, and now you start to like wonder. It's like, is it a love triangle? We know that Bill and Keiko are sort of the grandparents. What's going on with Lee? They seem to be getting really
Yeah.
chummy.
that's exactly how that happened, because if you remember what happened in that episode, in that past sense, is when Bill told Kiko that there was going to be a new Titan emergence. It was going to happen. He knew.
Mhm.
And that's when Lee decided that he was just going to go to his lieutenant and want to be a regular infantryman again. He wanted to be out in the field, and they told him, well, if you're going to do that, you're not part of this monarch anymore. You're not doing it. And that's when you really see, because you're like, what is he trying to do? Like, are
Yeah.
you trying to leave Monarch to not be closer anymore, or what is going on? So that's when you see Bill and Kiko go to Japan, and they meet up with Suzuki
Mhm.
to just use his gamma radiation thing, and that's when Lee just randomly pops out, and you're like, what is happening? Like, where did what is Lee doing? Well, and I think that's the first time I really questioned like Lee's integrity to
Yeah.
everything, because you're like, where is he at? Is he just really on the military side, or is he gonna keep pursuing Dr. Kiko and keeping up with their triangle?
Right, right. And well, interestingly enough, like the being on the military side or on Monarch side, or being sort of like what is his like what are his true feelings around how to
Hmm.
handle the Titans, right?
Yeah,
And it really sets that up a little, it really sets up the final act of the season for sure. Like
absolutely.
that tension. And I'm trying to remember what else happened with the main crew in that episode. Or was it mostly a flashback
Um,
episode?
Well, it was the flashback because they did, because I mean, if you remember, that's where Suzuki is at Monster Island.
Yeah.
So he uses that gamma radiation, because this is the first time they find out that that hydrogen bomb that the military used did not kill Godzilla like
Right.
they wanted it to, because now you have, here he is, right there, Godzilla, and
Hmm.
that's when you could tell just on their face, that the bomb never killed them, and that the military's going to have to find out. But in the present section, that's when they're kind of talking with Duval,
Hmm.
and Duval is kind of touching onto everything, and they find out about how Shaw is kind of, you could tell he's really concentrating on everything that's happening now, and they really show that the only reason why he's doing it is because he had such a lack of involvement in G-Day. He knew about all of this. I mean, remember, this started in, I mean, we all know that it started way sooner than the 50s, but he had so much involvement, and then he did nothing for G-Day.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. So it basically showed him, hey, I'm doing this because I was not present, and a lot of people died from it.
Yeah. Like he feels like he could have done so much more.
Yep.
So there's like a lot of guilt, right? Like, so yeah, there's like that survivor's guilt. Which is again what I love about this show is you get a lot of these complex character arcs and these motivations that we don't really necessarily get in the main movies too much. Too
Yeah.
much. Those are I think with Godzilla and then Skull Island we get a little bit more of that. But
Yeah, because I think also in that present is when they see Hiroshi,
mhm.
and, because where are they? They're
'Cause
just
when
in,
Hiroshi is on in
where did they go?
when
Was
Hiroshi
he
sort
in,
of waves them off, right?
yeah, oh, wait, because that's when they went back to Kazakhstan,
Because that's when
because
Godzilla shows up.
they found the map that went to Kazakhstan,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure that's where Hiroshi was. They see him off in the distance with
Mhm.
his cool little gamma radiation thing, like, ready to go, and
Yeah, trying
you
to
see
trigger
it.
a Titan appearance, right?
Yeah, and he thought he was alone, and obviously he's not, and you
Yeah.
see him wave away the whole entire group, and you're like, "What is he doing?" Like, his kids are right there,
Yeah, yeah,
and then he drives away like nothing ever happened, and that was just about the time that, Monarch was starting to show up,
yeah.
because
Doesn't
that's when
Godzilla
Tim
show up
found
again in
out.
that moment?
What?
Isn't that when Godzilla shows up again in that moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I think it's Monarch that set it off, because, like, yes, Hiroshi, like, signaled for him for Godzilla, but I think it was more when Monarch showed up, because they found the path.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first moment that I was like, May told him. May told him. Like, how else would they find out?
Yeah. Well, the episode prior to that, right? We see the phone call with May in uh, the settlement, and
Mhm.
then leading to this. So clearly, they got sold out. But that then again leads into the next episode, which is May's. I think it's called Will the Real May Stand Up?
Mace, please stand up. It's such a great title.
Fantastic. And yeah, so this is where you get the whole like explanation as to why she left America, went to Japan. So essentially, yeah, she was hired by AET to do some coding, and then she sort of found out that they were experimenting on animals.
Yeah, they were
Um,
just doing the neural thing for the Titans and
they
stuff.
wanted to do the neuro link kind of
Yep.
stuff, yeah. But they were experimenting. I know they just all like they showed the images of all the animals and all that, yeah. So she was like, "No, I can't do this."
Yep.
So yeah, so she turns out I guess she puts a bug in the
Oh
system,
yeah, she corrupts the whole entire
corrupts the
system.
whole thing,
It's all gone.
all gone. And so they're after her. So that's why she's off.
And that's why she went to Japan.
That's why she's in Japan. Which I know we didn't really touch on too much of her meeting with Kentaro, but like I guess we can kind of touch on that. I thought it was very sweet with the art show several episodes back.
I think it was adorable because it was the perfect timing because you could tell that because it was Kentaro at his art show.
Hmm.
Hiroshi is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
You could tell he is visibly upset that his father's not there. And I feel like him meeting May outside while he's taking a photo just of the art show thing that says his name and everything. I think that was just a perfect time to really show their connection and like they met at a vulnerable time. He was very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love them. I ship them always. I don't care.
I know.
Whatever happened, but like I think they're adorable. That's just me. I would like to see more of them.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where the characters end up.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, so we get kind of the general, and I think this is sort of when is it when they get her out of the building? Is it when they set off the test alarm, or not really?
Um,
That's a little bit later.
which test alarm?
When they trick
Oh, they tripped in the
and
city.
when they talk where we're talking about oh gosh, what's her name? Did I write it down? Brenda?
Brenda. Brenda was the boss at AET.
Yeah. Because she was the one that courted May into joining. But then so May ended up going back.
Yeah, May goes back because in after the Godzilla attack in the desert, that's when Shaw had separated from them.
Hmm.
So separated from that trio, and you don't know where he goes off to. He just kind of stays there
Yeah.
when Monarch takes back the trio. And while Kate and Kentaro are waiting for their flight, is when they find out that now May is missing or has been kidnapped because all of her
Hmm.
stuff was in the bathroom. And just prior to that, you see May talk to these two people in suits. Come on, you narrow it down. You're like, yeah, you work for Monarch. We know. You can just at this point just wear a shirt that says Monarch. And then that's when they start trying to find out where May went, and they run into Tim and press Tim. And you have to remember, Tim was in the desert too. He was a part of what happened.
Yeah.
He went through that whole Godzilla attack there. Um, and that's when they're just kind of looking for May. And
Yeah.
the episode just has the three of them, so Tim, Kentaro, and Kate looking for May, and they have Shaw who starts his own little anti-monarch in Kazakhstan. Just go two completely different routes.
Two completely different pads, and I know so with Shaw, yeah. So okay, so then they don't really meet up with Brenda just yet.
Yeah,
Um
Brenda was, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure Brenda's just in that flashback, and then she's in that last episode. I don't remember her
she's
coming
only
in
in the
again.
last episode.
I know she's right at the end of the last episode, but I remember her being
She's in the flashback, but
in the
then Tim and the
flashback.
three of them go in to get May because they're in a meeting there, the two of them.
Was it Brenda though?
I'm
Or
pretty
was
sure it was
it
Brenda.
so Brenda went to Monarch? Yeah, that I don't
No,
know.
Brenda didn't go to
Brenda
Monarch. May went to AET
AT.
to confront AET.
Yeah, actually I might have that.
Yeah, so I know May goes in, and that's sort of when they set off the test G-Day alert to,
Yes.
like, confuse the city and, like, get everyone out of AET's building.
Yeah, because the whole issue at the AET was because she found out about the Apex.
About Apex, and then, we don't.
Apex Cybernetics, which is our favorite Godzilla versus Kong.
Mhm.
Nice little thing. As soon as I heard that, I was like, "Well, we already know where that's going."
And then going in
Um,
Godzilla versus Kong, we get our Mechagodzilla, right? There's a lot of all that.
yeah, I really liked that they took the time in this show to really touch on every important character's backstory. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, May is a lower end character compared to like your Kentaro and Kate because it's so random based. But to touch on somebody's story like that, I liked it because it felt more personable and you really get a backstory of um, May, her decoding, and then that's when they were able to slide in about this Apex and really connect the Godzilla versus Kong.
This show, I'll tell you, did the legwork in terms of world building for this universe
Oh yeah, we have
because
so much.
I mean, yes, the movies are fun, the movies are exciting, we love them. But in terms of just like the world building and the story connections, and like this, they were like, okay, we need something that really sort of connects it in a neat, nice,
Yep.
a neat, nice bow. Um, I mean, this is yeah, no, that's why it's so exciting this show. But yeah, so they get May out. May's like, whatever, F you guys. To AET, not to not to
Yeah, to
Tim and
but
Kate and
you have to remember she did talk to Kate and Kentaro and told them flat out, like, my name is not May. This is
yeah, she
not
came
it.
clean.
And she did tell them she really didn't wanna be a part of what they were doing anymore,
Yeah,
and she didn't want to be included. I think it's because she finally just hit a breaking point. There's people after you now.
yeah.
You know too much. It's one of those things you know too much. You gotta watch yourself.
Well, May's the Han Solo of this group, right?
Yeah,
She's the reluctant hero. She
yeah,
doesn't want. She wants nothing to do with this.
exactly.
But she's just sort of found herself in because she has a conscience, right? Because she
Mhm.
made a moral decision to stand up against something.
Yeah,
And so she was like, sort of like, I don't really want to be the one, but if I'm forced, I
yeah,
will make the good decision here, right?
that's exactly how it was.
Um, but I know we get into the next episode, Birthright, which I know dives into. I'm trying to remember. So the team goes back to where things all began to
This
confront Shaw.
Yeah, so that's,
So,
this is the exact episode where you confirm so 8 episode 8
mhm,
with episode 1 are directly connected.
yeah,
So, you find out about Kiko getting sucked into the hole, um, in the first episode, but you really didn't hear more about it, and this, episode really shows that, um, Kate finds the file that shows that her grandma did die, and that
yeah,
she died in that expedition with those little creature eggs,
yeah.
the insect eggs in the first episode. And then you kinda get depressed a little bit, and you're like, "Well, this is depressing now because I actually really liked her."
It was wonderful, wonderful
Um,
character. So this is when. So do we know now that Shaw? This is so because now it's been yeah, it's because it's been a minute. So is this when they reveal Shaw's true intention with going to each of the portals, these isotopes, right?
yeah, this is when because, this is when he found all of those extra Monarch, explosive devices.
Explosives, yes.
Because that's when because they had used that to kill the one Ice Titan, and then Shaw takes his anti-monarch back to Kazakhstan, where he knew now Lee knows that's the last place that Kiko was seen. That was right before we all found out that that's the last place she was. And you could tell all he's doing is closing these portals. And that's when we start learning about the whole portal thing
Yeah,
and how Lee knows all of this extra stuff. Um, and they ended up meeting with each other. So now we have the trio meeting back up with Shaw and his anti monarch. And you can tell they're just on two different wavelengths because Lee is like, I'm going to bomb everything. And they're like, what are
mhm.
we doing here? Like, I just want to find out what these portals are now.
Right, right. But his plan, he wants to blow them all up.
Yeah, he just wants to blow every single portal up and thinks
It's
that
sort of
blowing them up is gonna close them.
Right, and I think it works on one of them, right?
It worked on that, but you have to remember because then that's when it cuts back to the Monarch headquarters with,
Mhm.
Natalia, and that's when, okay, the explosion happened here, but now we have this many more spots that just opened up on the map.
So it's just
So they're
sorta
like
like
it's
chaos
basically
theory.
yeah, it's basically you just blow something up, 12 more open
The
is
land
what's
once I
happening.
forgot what is it called? Well, we don't know yet that it leads down there, right? Kinda?
Oh, yeah, the Hollow Earth.
The Hollow
They
Earth, right?
yeah, I think that just comes up in the next episode, so
Yeah,
they
yeah,
can
yeah,
talk
okay.
about it too.
But yeah, so, I mean, we know that the portal so it's like, the Hollow Earth finds a way. It needs these portals, right?
Yeah,
Um, but, yeah, no, it's so funny to see that Shaw sort of takes the approach of the military when they were just like, "Alright, let's just bomb Godzilla," right? And he's
and he's
sort of
just
like
doing
he just ends up being the same kind of issue.
yeah, and I don't know if that was I feel like the viewers can take it as a couple different ways. Is he being like this because he just thinks it's gonna solve issues and he's upset about Kiko?
Mhm.
And that's why he's just bombing these portals. But at the same time, this is also when they touch on Shaw announcing that, hey, there's a whole nother world underneath this before they're setting off the bombs. He's telling Kate in that private conversation off the
Yeah,
side from the anti monarch, like, hey, there's this whole other world underneath us. And I've been there. That's how I know.
yeah,
Um, and then I think, like, at that point, that, like I said, with the viewers, worked with Kiko long enough to be educated, but I think he let his heart break enough and just wanted to bomb it and just wanted all of this over with so that it
yeah.
didn't happen again. You could look at it different ways.
I think so. Yeah, no, because well, what's great with Shaw, a lot of all these characters, they're just like really complicated. They're complex characters, and right, and so you get these different elements of like heartbreak and sort of blinded by one thing but meaning another, or trying something out of desperation even though it may not work, or
Mhm.
um, but I know so then we really dive into Shaw now because now we sort of go into the penultimate episode, right, where we get this expedition where he goes down with a couple of folks and they send them down into the Hollow Earth.
Yeah, because
And
that was after they had just found out because right in the last episode with the past,
mhm,
they didn't think about an hollow earth or a portal and stuff like that until, Bill was reading that map, and all that happened was an ant came through the map, and he was
mhm,
like, "Wait a second, like, this is what's happening. This is how we got the portal," and then, obviously, once they had all that information, Shaw has to bring it to his lieutenant or his colonel, his general. He's
yeah.
gotta bring it to them, and then that's when they come up with this expedition, and they just wanna send, I think it was 4 of them down and see if they can get into the portal, which is a wild thing to do. You haven't even investigated these things, and you're just sending 4 people in there,
It's
but
like sending the dog out into space, right? It's
exactly.
like just go, I guess. All
Yeah.
right.
Like, you didn't do anything, but okay. And that was the same time frame right before that, uh, Kiko comes clean to Bill about being a widow and has
Yeah.
Hiroshi as a son that she just got back from the US.
Right, we learned that Bill's not really the grand like
Yeah,
the
Bill
Hiroshi's
is
father. I mean,
yep.
adoptive father, right?
He's the adoptive father because, right when they're about to start the expedition is when Shaw's just having a nice conversation with Hiroshi and like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Uncle Shaw's gonna be back," and this and that, and obviously we all know how that goes.
Yeah, I love this like the found family stuff or like the adopted stories. I mean, having an adopted child is like it's one thing, but also like I love it. I don't think they planned it this way.
No,
But in Godzilla minus one was a whole there was a whole
you
found
can't tell me about that. I didn't watch it yet. I
it's
didn't
not
watch
spoil
it yet.
yeah, but there
I
was
heard
a
it's
whole
incredible.
story arc about found family.
Yeah.
And that was a whole theme, and that was like so yeah, so no spoilers there. But like it was like I love that this is these two Godzilla properties are sort of just sort of serendipitously exploring very similar themes, and I
Yeah, and
appreciate that.
I have to put in the note because I'll forget if we go back. Before this expedition episode, we have to remember that, Kate, Shaw, and May fell into the hole after that
Yes.
Titan attacked. before they set off the detonations. I have to remember that because I'll forget. We're gonna
Yeah, yeah,
jump
no,
into
they
it, and I'm gonna be
totally,
like,
yeah,
"How
because
did they
we're
get
going
there?"
into
Yeah.
the real, well, we know as we explore sort of this Shaw back, this whole, you know, flashback, right? So like I think the two other folks die. Ryan, he's sort of spending a lot of time down there trying to
Mhm.
survive. He sends out a beacon for help.
Yep.
They get him out, but it's not the 50s anymore or the
No.
60s. It was 62, I think they went down.
Yeah, because I think they did say it was 62. Um,
Um, and he goes back, and now it's like 1982 or whatever.
yeah, it was, because that's just when he woke up in the hospital bed. I mean,
And then he
I'm assuming going through the portal. I mean, you don't really see it, but, like,
mhm,
I feel like that's gotta be a hell of a time, and
going through the
I'm ass
portal.
yeah, I'm assuming he
It's a trip.
was in, like, a coma. And that's when you see him wake up and he's
Yeah.
like, "What is going on? I need to talk to this person. I need to talk to Bill Randa. Bill Randa. Bill Randa." He's holding a nurse hostage. I was like, "Yeah, I mean, he's terrified." And that's when
Yeah.
he gets the news that from Hiroshi himself and a adult Hiroshi
Yeah.
that, "Hey, dude, it's been 20 years.
I
You
love the
you
moment
were
of
gone.
confusion when he passes a room and sees the rocket going up in space. He's like, "What the
What
hell?
is happening?"
What
Yeah,
is
he's
that?"
like, "What is this?" He's so confused. He's like, "I don't know what's happening."
Was that supposed to be that's not the Challenger, right? That was later. I forget
Yeah,
what year.
that uh that's a great question now. I don't
What yeah,
remember
what
what it
was
was.
getting launched in '82?
Yeah.
Trying to
If you
remember.
know, just tell us.
Yeah, yeah, what missions were going on that year? Because the Challenger I know was the explosion, but I for some reason I feel like that was later '80s,
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was later.
with the teacher but
Yeah, so you're just, cutting to him, and that's when they're really getting, like he finds out that Billy's dead. So, this man just found out he came back 20 years later, looks the complete same. His best friend has died, and his Hiroshi is an adult man.
an adult
It's
man.
a lot to find
It's a
out.
lot to process.
Yeah, I feel like they could have slowed that down just a little bit, but
I
you can't rush
know.
it.
You wanna really explore that. I mean, 10 episodes is a pretty decent I mean, that's pretty basic now for television, right? It's
Yeah.
premium TV. I could have used another episode, right, or something, but
Yeah.
or longer because the episodes. I mean, some episodes were about 50 minutes or so, which
Yeah.
I mean they were long, but I feel like one of the episodes you could have at least maybe even the finale did like an hour and a half, right?
Oh,
You
I
could have
could have
done like
taken an hour and a half of that,
yeah,
no
yeah,
doubt.
especially
And,
the last episode. Oh my gosh, so
I'm so excited.
yeah, so I mean, so we get this whole straw thing, and then so we really find out like that's why he looks so young in 2015
And
because
that's why
he
he was on the house arrest,
and he was under house arrest because
because
he didn't
Monarch put
age
him
for
in there.
20 years. He only so I think what it was, he was down there for 50 something days, 2 weeks, no, 2 weeks. I think he was
Yeah,
down
he said I think he was only down there for 2 weeks,
it was like almost
but
like a decade a week,
yep.
essentially. So and then yeah, so we find out that or yeah, that's why he was under house arrest because you know, eh, I guess they didn't really want they didn't want him out there.
Yeah. They didn't want I think they knew he knew a lot,
He did
and
know a lot. I mean, he
now
experienced this like extreme sort of I don't know. I think they were also probably worried about like what he would do,
yeah, what he would do, what he would even say.
what he would say to people, cause a
Who is
panic for his
yeah,
group.
he's gonna I mean, imagine if he just talked to the regular military again. I mean, if you think about it, he never really talked to the military again.
No,
They he was just under Monarch. He
I mean
didn't
someone
go
that knew him would still be alive. Somebody,
yeah,
right? They'd be like, "Oh shoot, no, you did not age for 20 years. This
you
is
did not
real.
age.
We need to do something."
And you're gonna tell me that you were in a portal? Mm, you're crazy.
So yeah, and then okay, so yeah, but now Kate, Shaw, and May are down there.
Yep.
Um,
They're all down in the, Hollow Earth is what they call
Hollow
it,
Earth, and
which
so we really so the representation of the Hollow Earth. So we don't get too many creatures. We get some.
yeah, you
Uh,
get a couple.
we get some buggies. We get sort of the main big guy that they had to escape. I love the lightning strikes.
I loved any of the lightning strikes or the portal itself.
The portal itself was awesome.
'Cause it wasn't just like your normal type of portal, you could tell it's literally in the middle of nowhere, and
Hmm.
it's just beams of light going up, but not
Yeah.
too aggressive beams of light. just enough to tell you, yeah, this is an important spot, but it's not something
Yeah.
you got to pay attention
It
to
was
all the time.
simplistic in a really sort of impressive way.
Yeah, because then
Um,
that's when they all really find out. Because I think Shaw is there to explain, like, hey, the only way, like, this is how these portals work. We can't just go out of this portal.
yeah.
The Titan has to open the portal, and you basically go through with the Titan, is what kind of Shaw explained was going to happen. That
Yeah.
was the only way to really do it. Um, and I liked how they have just Kantaro on the outside after this attack from Godzilla, just struggling because he's got nobody now.
I know when
When
him
it's
and
his
his mom connecting again, and
yeah,
she's just like, "You have to feel what you feel," you know? And I was like, "Oh, man, this I loved his mom. I love
but
Kentaro's mom."
she's so adorable.
Yeah. The 2 of them, I love I think
Yeah,
Kentaro's adorable, the mom's adorable, everyone's adorable.
but it's nice that they balanced that one episode out with, all right, you got those three that are stuck in this hollow earth,
Mhm.
and they're trying to figure out how to get out. Oh, actually, you only have 2 because technically May and Shaw were together. They had no idea where Kate was.
Right, they were separated, yeah.
They were separated. Um,
'Cause Kate
but
well, we'll get to that, but
yeah, so it was nice that they did this outside story, what's happening on Earth itself with Kentaro,
yeah.
because that's when he comes into contact with his father. Um,
Mhm.
which, oh, the tension. I like sat there and I was like, here we go. I was like, this is gonna be good. This is gonna
Yeah.
be good.
Hiroshi's got some splaining to do.
Yeah. I was like, this is gonna be awkward. He just
Yeah.
went right back to his dad's office and there's his dad.
Yeah.
All right, Hiroshi, you better sit down and start explaining a lot because you saw your children while you were out in the desert and you drove away.
And he
What is
does,
happening?
but he doesn't really take full accountability, right?
I I'm not a fan of him. He
Yeah.
really doesn't take full accountability for anything, like at all. Sir, you were the main part of this.
I mean, granted, okay, yes, he's young, his mom disappears, dies.
Mhm.
It's a lot of trauma for a little kid.
Absolutely.
But
And then Shaw disappeared. You have to remember
and
that too. So
and
he
Shaw
literally had Bill for. I mean, they never really touch on how old Bill was when he died, how old Hiroshi was when Bill died.
Mhm.
They do tell you that Bill died on that expedition, that one expedition that he took after they were already dead.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like you don't know, was Hiroshi more 18, adult like when Bill passed away,
So that was
or
the '70s, right? Skull Island?
yeah. So all
So
right, so
fif so
he's
he was a
almost
kid in the '50s.
so he's probably like in his 20s by then. So
Maybe
he was an
teens,
adult
20s?
when Bill. I mean, it's
Eh,
still traumatic. Still
it's
traumatic.
still hard to lose a parent at any age, but,
Absolutely.
you know, um yeah, no, 'cause beyond all that loss, it's still his responsibility, right, to sort of own
Yep.
up to those things, and he doesn't really, right? Not in the sense that not in the way that Kentaro or Kate would need.
Yeah, he's not he's that kind of dad that just isn't good isn't a good talking dad. Like I feel like deep down he wants to show love, but he's the kind who doesn't know how to show love. And that
Yeah,
could be from his trauma of not having a mother.
sure.
Once he cuz I think he was what would you say? He was probably like 8 when
8 or 9, right?
Shaw went on that expedition. So he doesn't have his mom.
Yeah,
And then Bill died. He hasn't had anybody, and Shaw was gone forever. Shaw was gone for 20
exactly,
years. So, yeah, I can't imagine if that's probably why he is the way he is. He wants to
definitely.
show the love, but physically and mentally does not know how to.
I mean, if underneath this is a story about trauma and family and sort of generational trauma, right? So about Kate's G-date trauma, and sort of all the stuff that she got passed on from Hiroshi, as well as Kentaro from Hiroshi, but then Hiroshi getting it from Keiko and
Yep,
Bill, and right. So it's sort of how each generation has affected the other.
absolutely. And it's all connected because you could tell because everything just started making sense more once you finally meet Hiroshi. You're right. This is why Kate could be the way she is.
Yeah,
And this is the way Kintaro is the way he is. And that's just how they did it, which it makes total sense and it was easy to follow and
yeah.
it was nicely done.
And so we get the big moment of Kate meeting Keiko.
Yeah, well, that's when we find out Kate's alive
We
because
find out Kate's alive.
everybody's convinced that she is dead. Kentaro tells Hiroshi, like, Kate is dead
Right,
because of
right, and
you. And that's when his mom was just like, no, like, you need to go find her. You know she's still alive.
yeah.
And yeah, that was right at the end of that episode, which was wild when she kind of wakes up in the Hollow Earth, completely different area than May and Shaw. Like you're like, where are May and Shaw compared to her?
Yeah.
And she has that monster coming after her, that like pig monster, and you get an arrow to the eye, and you're like, who shot that? And yep, here she comes, our Lord and Savior Keiko.
There you go, I love it. It sort of reminded me a little bit of Michelle Pfeiffer when she was in, the quantum realm in
Oh,
Ant-Man.
absolutely. Like
Sort of just that survivalist kinda character, you know?
it was such a power reveal.
Yeah.
And I'm oddly glad that they waited to leave that on a cliffhanger. Like, I'm lucky that I had watched episode 9 and then I could just watch episode 10 when it was released. But just having that reveal, because now you're like, now this opens up so much more.
Yeah.
Now you have her, you know this Hollow Earth is a real thing, and now they all need to find each other so that they can get out.
I mean, generations coming together. I think Kate pretty much, I mean, going into, like, the finale, I know Kate pretty much realizes who she is, but she doesn't reveal it.
I think Kate just didn't believe it, kind of
Right,
deal.
yeah.
She's like, what? Because when Shaw was explaining Hollow Earth, I don't know if Kate fully believed that Keiko would still be alive.
Yeah.
Like, it's been way too long. Like, okay, he was down there for 20 years and he came back, but she's been down there since the 50s or 60, 62, whatever it was.
Yeah, and
So,
I know they sort of just kinda gave us the typical, like, well, what are they, the gravitational pull, and then so the time works different, and that's usually what they,
yeah,
that's your typical sci-fi explanation, which is
which
fine.
is exactly what was happening. So,
I'm not gonna fault them for that. I think it's very hard to explain those things. Some
yeah.
suspension of disbelief, but yeah, no, it's hard. Yeah, for her not to believe it, and so they kind of go looking for Shaw and May. It was such a crazy moment. I love when Shaw is hiding behind a tree,
Oh,
and he's like,
when they meet
"Oh,
up with them.
yeah." When they finally come across each other, and he's like, "Ah, time works different."
I liked that he did that because I think he knew that she would have freaked out.
Yeah.
I like, hey, let's give her the heads up, give her the little story of how everything happened, and like give it
Mhm.
to her lightly, and then we can really
Yeah.
come in with
Fully
it.
revealing that was I left in 1962. I got back in 82. That was 50 years ago,
Yeah.
40 years ago, whatever it was. I'm like, and she's like, oh, okay. So it must be 2015. She did the math.
Yep.
She's like,
And he's like, you were always good with numbers, and I was like, what is happening here? They
oh,
are in the weirdest love triangle.
it is so weird. It is so weird.
And then
But
that's when Shaw explains a
yeah.
lot about Bill being dead and Hiroshi
Yeah.
being alive. But I really loved when Kate was like, "Hey, like you're my grandma," and I was like, "Oh, my heart."
Generations meeting. So weird to be like the same age as your grandma.
Yeah, because I think that was right at the end of episode 9 is um, when they were doing that,
Hmm.
and I think 9 and 10 were some of the most emotional episodes
Yeah.
of this whole series
Well, it really all came full circle here, right?
because you had in episode 9 you have Kentaro going at Hiroshi, and that was
Hmm.
just an emotional time frame.
Yeah.
And then you have this whole Lee and Keiko um, reunion, and it just got so emotional with everything. The whole episode was just killer.
But we do get our big sort of kaiju battle in
Absolutely.
this. So that's sort of the plan, right? So the plan is to get out. So I think they go to find Shaw's old ship.
Yeah, with Kiko's, it's not really a ship. She didn't really have a ship. I think her because she was never trying to go into the portal because
Right.
that was before they even knew the portal existed. It was just this gamma radiation thing they had that would
Yeah.
signal for things.
Yeah.
And I think they just wanted to use it in Kazakhstan when they were there,
Yeah.
before she fell in. So they realized that that's the only way to signal for something. So now they got to carry this big ass thing to go
All
find his
4 of
ship.
them, like,
It's just picking up this big ass thing to bring to the ship. I was like,
like, that
they were
looks
just sleeping.
exhausting.
They're in the middle of nowhere. They don't even know where they are, and they got to carry this thing over. I was like, geez.
Wild. But that was pretty funny to watch,
Yeah,
all 4
it
of these
was hilarious.
But, yeah, so I know they're gonna use this to sort of signal a kaiju,
Hmm.
Titan to, like, bring them through.
Just to open the portal for them and kind of get them up there.
But it ends up triggering this Hollow Earth battle.
Yeah, well, because if you remember, Lee says he was like, "Oh, we're signaling something that was already here."
Mhm.
Um, that was such a cool looking monster too. First off, that thing was massive,
Yeah.
which is crazy because at points compared to Lee and the crew, this Titan is massive.
Yeah.
But then when it gets into the whole Godzilla, I was like, "This thing is so tiny." I was like,
Yeah, for a second, I thought it was gonna be Rodan.
Mhm.
I don't know what it I don't they don't really that's the thing is they don't really give these names per se, or I don't know a lot
No,
of these were pre-existing ones,
yeah,
like in older movies.
which is yeah. I mean, they got a lot of that. Um,
But this thing was yeah, this thing was cool. I like you have to have a different dynamic, like whether it's a flying one, an ice one, you sort of have to
the
something to make it
flying,
stand apart a little bit.
yeah, the flying was killer. That thing
Mhm.
was a beast. And that battle was just it was a nice simple battle, but just enough to give you what you needed to
It
show the
was just
battle.
like out in the open,
Wasn't over the
right?
yeah, and it wasn't an over the top thing where they're
No.
just going at it for the next 10 minutes of the episode. It's a nice short and sweet. You get to see that awesome battle
Yeah.
and just they cut it right there, and that's how it is. You just
Was
have
that
just enough action for it.
I think so. I think it's perfect, right? Because it's not really about the monster battles, but I feel like you still deep down as a fan, you wanna see
You
something
wanna
like
see
that.
something, especially
Uh,
with Godzilla on the poster, you wanna see
right.
everything.
You wanna have some, so I think it was a good balance,
Mhm.
for that, right? Especially because you want it to be because it wanted to be story driven, but then you sort of wanna have this, like, at least end it on, like, a big monster high, right?
Absolutely, and they did a great job with doing it literally right at the end,
Yeah.
because at the beginning of the episode is when they were trying to get Kentaro and Hiroshi to merge together to save lives, and
Mhm.
that's when we find out that Tim left Monarch,
Mhm.
and he was like, "I'm sick of this, like, you're not I'm telling you," like, Tim told the deputy that there are people underground, like, they are under in this hollow earth, and Tim knew because he knew he was getting a signal from there,
Yeah.
and they didn't wanna believe him, and like I said, it's one of those things where Monarch's a love-hate relation because you understand why they don't wanna listen to him because they're just trying to save all the other people in the world.
Right.
Where at the same time, you also have people that are under Earth that you have to save, and they just don't wanna do it. So Tim leaves and takes his files and meets with Kentaro and tries to latch into Hiroshi to really help them actually do a thing and save lives because and Kentaro makes Hiroshi feel bad. Like,
Yep.
"Hey, dude, you were a part of this and you disappeared. You've ruined families and you're not helping anything.
I
So
don't
this is your time to shine, buddy." It's basically what
Time to
Kentaro
step
said.
up.
Yeah.
No, don't just do this on your own, right? You've ruined all yeah, exactly. And then this was sort of his moment. Now, does it fully redeem Hiroshi? Meh.
Mm, it's questionable. I did get a little emotional during
Yeah, a half
his meetup
redemption.
with his mom.
Yeah.
Um, that's an emotional time, and I think she handled it beautifully. Once again, I love Kentaro's mom. She's a sweetheart. She's a gem to society. um, but she tells him flat out, like, "Hey, I don't care what you did to me, but like, you better be in your son's life,
Yeah.
and you better do this." And I think because that was right prior to Tim and Kentaro going, I think what she said led beautifully into them asking for his help,
Yeah.
because she said like, your son matters, you need to be there for him.
Mhm.
And that's the only time you really see Hiroshi kind of building up. Like, he's trying to better himself, because that's when he agrees to go with Tim and Kentaro. And you're like, I wonder if it's because of what she said. And
Mm.
now he's trying to change to be a better person because, hey, you know what you did. That's his like first time you really see him feel guilt.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever felt guilt throughout the whole entire series. He was a miserable character.
Visual character, even when because he was off screen for most of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just dealing with the impact that he had.
Yep.
But yeah, Kentaro's mom really started being a voice of reason, and like she's so level-headed throughout the whole show, right? Especially like when they first meet Kate, right? I think I was, we were talking about that. Like she has such a sort of like a calm sort of understanding of like I need to know what's
Hmm.
going on, and she sort of carried that through. Um, but yeah, and so now all the storylines sort of come together, right? As they come back up through the portal.
Oh, and we gotta get to that depressing part. This is like the only time I wanted to shed a tear was during that stuff. While
When they come
they
out.
Well, no, because you have to remember the thing got unplugged, and Lee got out to go fix it. And
That's right.
I think, like I said, this was the most emotional because even the conversation prior, when she was saying, Kiko was saying she didn't want to come back. She's like, Billy's gone. My son is older. I don't even know him. I don't want to ruin his life. And that was already emotional because you're like, no, like we need you. And Kate's
Yeah.
speech to her was adorable, like saying, like, you aren't finished up there. We need you. Um, and then that makes you like your heart warm. And then when that thing got unplugged and Lee went out, I personally knew that he was not coming back up. I knew that was going to happen in every way, shape, or form.
This was like his big moment to do
I,
something about the whole situation, right? His
I
big
was like,
sacrifice.
and I think that was one of those things where he knew that he had to do it.
Yeah.
He had to let go, let them go up. You've done your time. You were down here for a little bit. You did your work up top. You have to let go. But it's still so emotional because
Yeah.
Kiko had just gotten Lee back. And now she's just relying on Hiroshi, Kate, and Kentaro. And she hasn't even met Kentaro yet. And she hasn't even seen Hiroshi. So she just lost Billy and Lee, basically in one day because she found out about Billy that same day, and now she just
Yeah.
lost Lee. So
He was
it
only
was
down there for
emotional.
2 months, not even?
Yeah. So it was definitely an emotional time because you're like,
Oof.
wow, that's depressing.
It was very sad. Yeah, you know, I was about to brush right past that. I was like, maybe I was just blocking it out.
Oh, it's like one of those fever dream things you don't want to remember.
I was like, "No, no death and loss in the show, please, thank you."
Oh yeah.
No.
So they make it through the portal though.
They make it back through the portal, and we find out, so Kentaro's there to, greet them, and we find out it's 2 years later. They've been down
Yeah.
there for not that long, but
I don't think I expected it to be 2 years
I
later.
was trying to understand the way that time works, right? Because
Yeah.
if well, no, I guess that makes sense because if Shaw was down there for 2 weeks and he lost 20 years, if they were down there for maybe what I don't know, a couple of
A
days,
day.
a
Yeah, a day or
day,
two,
maybe
I
just
think it
like
was.
percentage-wise, maybe the 2 years make sense.
Yeah, that's possible. But now, like, now I want to know what were they doing in those 2 years? Like, what else
Well, Apex
happened?
was building up, right? Because we find out that Kentaro, Hiroshi, and all them worked with AET. Tim, right? These were the underground folks.
That's who, as Brenda said best. That's who do you think funded this?
Yeah, yeah.
Just the rescue.
So we find out, yeah. So AET and Apex have developed, and so they agree. They find out it's 2 years later. We do get a moment with Keiko and Hiroshi.
That was
It's very
emotional too.
emotional. It's brief though. That's why I'm hoping we get a second season because it would be cool to see those dynamics really play
Hmm.
out now. And especially if there's a little like I know it's a 2 year jump, but I'll be curious if season two gets a jump because we do get our little moment with Mr. Kong.
So excited. As soon so like, because that was just such a great setup for that
Yeah.
reveal because they're on a regular airplane tarmac kind of deal. Just the the building's right there, and you just feel the vibrations and
Mhm.
stuff. Everybody starts running, and you're like, "What are they all running from?" And like you said, it's 2 years later. We don't know what happened in those 2 years. We don't know what was happening. Like, has there been another Titan attack and stuff like that? Um, and then when they made that reveal, oh my gosh, I was ready
Mhm.
to just I was like a standing ovation for that.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
who doesn't love some King Kong? Who doesn't love Kong?
I almost wanna just take a moment to go to the Wikipedia for King of Monsters because chronologically, I'm trying to remember I'm trying to figure out if this is right before God of Monsters, right? Isn't that what it's called? Or King of
Uh, King of Monsters. I don't even know where my
King of
phone is.
Monsters. King of Monsters. Yeah, yeah, there we go. Oh, it's a 2019 film, but what year did it take place? 5 years after the existence of giant monsters called Titans was revealed to the world, so 5 years after 2014.
So that's
So,
still 2019.
which would be 2019.
So it still
So,
wouldn't line up with this because
so
this would
15, 16,
so
17.
we're at 17 right now.
So we're
When they
3
come
years
back,
before King of Monsters.
so when is the first Kong movie?
So Skull Island's the 7th,
Because Skull Island's then, but
but then we haven't had a solo Kong movie.
yeah, we haven't, which is so disappointing. Like, eh, give me
Yeah,
some more Kong.
more Kong for sure. So, um because it still does with like still deals with the monarch scientists, and so I'd be curious to see like what leads up to them being the way they are in
Mhm.
King of Monsters. um I don't know. Yeah, so it is the way in which they filled in gaps that we didn't even expect them to fill in for the first season. I see them doing the same thing,
Yeah.
filling in the gaps here for this, a few years prior to King of Monsters, unless season two actually does another. I mean, it's a 2 year jump. We're here, but I wonder if maybe we get another little jump.
Yeah, because I mean, we have a lot of questions.
Hmm.
We have a lot of questions that need to be answered now because where is this going to lead into? So, are we going to go the Kong route now and stay with Kong? Um, I also was reading up on different things about just all the different monsters because they do it really fast. But in the first episode, when Monarch is looking at the screen, they're talking about the Bigfoot, which I think was such a wild ride to think about because you're like, is Bigfoot part of the MonsterVerse? Like, are we gonna get Bigfoot? Because it's right there on the screen, and they're talking about Bigfoot.
Yeah, true,
So,
true.
are we going to be adding Bigfoot into this?
That'd be
Um,
wild.
so they did have the Kong Skull Island in 2017.
Was in 2017, but the movie took place in the 70s.
Yeah,
So that's the thing. Is like there wasn't a modern component to
yeah,
it.
because then we didn't get Godzilla vs Kong till 21.
Yeah. Well, Skull
So
Island, I think, had a flash forward at some point, right? Skull Island.
because then
mm,
you just like sit here because you're like, well, now I want to know. Like, first off, I want to see more of how Kentaro, Hiroshi,
yeah.
and Tim got with Apex, what Apex has been telling them, what information they know. Because obviously, you know that Apex is completely separate from Monarch.
Right.
And I want to know how they got there, how to finding them. I would like to see in second season more about these portals. Okay, what are they going to do to close up these portals?
Yeah.
Um,
Or
include
they try to even continue to try to do it.
Yeah, and then the main question always is Lee Shaw going to come back? Is he going to come back again,
Is he down there still? Because
or is he down? You know what? I can see Kurt Russell being like, you know what, guys, this was a good season. Thanks. I'm good. I
he
gotta
might
move on.
want. He seems like he's game for a lot of stuff. Kurt Russell. I don't know.
Yeah, he is that kind of guy.
But yeah, so I was trying to think. There's the post credit scene for Skull Island that leads into King of Monsters because they show cave paintings of Mothra, Rodan,
Hmm.
Ghidorah. Um, but it's all mostly in 73.
Yeah, that's why it's and
So
that's like the kind of questions I have. Like I just want to
I know. I feel
know.
like I'll have to look up some news. I don't know if it got picked up for another season. Well, I'll Google that before we start to wrap up.
Yeah,
Um,
because the only thing that I'm seeing now is that they have the Planet of Monsters, the Godzilla, um,
so Screen Rant has an
the
article.
Japanese film that was like a anime type thing, but that was a 2017 Godzilla.
Uh,
But we're still getting Kong, which where did Kong come from? Tell me. This is not 1973.
so let's see. I don't know what superhero hype. I don't know this website. I don't know how trustworthy they are.
Yeah,
Always check your sources, kids.
absolutely.
Um, so I don't know, but
It'll be interesting if they. I really
maybe
hope they do a season two.
they
I would
say the
love a
show
show
has
with.
done very well. Um, in this article, but there's no current order. So
Yeah.
fingers crossed. I mean, we're getting Godzilla X Kong very soon.
Yep.
Did you
I
see
think
the Skull
that's
Island
April.
anime?
I think it's April is
April.
when that new one's coming out.
Yeah. And did you
That's the last I checked, but
gotcha? And did you say you saw the Skull Island anime? That was really good.
no, I haven't. That's just what I was. No, I was just reading about Godzilla anime.
There was a Godzilla anime. But the Skull Island anime, I think it's on Netflix.
I'll have
Um,
to watch that
is
one.
very good. Or an animated show. I don't know if it's technically an anime, but
Yeah.
um that was really even my husband's not big on the MonsterVerse, but he actually really enjoyed it.
Oh, so yeah, I'll have to
You
watch
should. It's
that.
quick. I think it's like 8 episodes or something, and they're like
Oh,
20
even better.
minutes, like a typical animated kind of show.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah,
That'll
yeah,
be on my
really,
list this week.
really super fast binge. But yeah, trying to have anything. I mean, this really was a blast of a show.
Yeah, I agree. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, and again, like it just added so much lore and the world building, and then but first and foremost, like the characters were great, and that's really what I was hoping out of this show.
Hmm. And I think the plus side to this show, like I'm really hoping for season two, and I think the reason why is because I mean you have to remember the first like King Kong and Godzilla movies came out in like the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
30s,
were
40s, right?
so we've had so many movies that can feed into this. And
Mm-hmm.
as we were just talking about the the Godzilla X Kong, like we're just making more. You have so much to base a show off of, and you have such a strong show with a great storyline so far. Just keep
Hmm.
feeding into it at this point. Just keep putting it out.
Because
People are gonna want it.
I mean, there's so many creatures that they could pull from, and so many like just scenarios. I wish we had one movie. I mean, I love the battles in King of Monsters, but I feel like yeah, you get Rodan, Ghidorah,
Yeah.
Mothra, and I
Yep.
just feel like all in one movie, and I feel like we're never gonna see them again, and it sort of just feels I sort of need to. We need a little
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that they can continue with, and I would like to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, can never go wrong with some monsters. And I mean, I heard Godzilla minus one was absolutely incredible. I heard it's
Fantastic.
blowing out the box offices right now.
It's
Um,
it's amazing. I cannot wait to buy it. That is a movie I will be getting on 4K.
and I think they released this show at the perfect timing because if you
Like right
remember,
between the Japanese film and the American film. Yeah.
it came out, and I mean, anybody who's just like, "Oh, I want to go see Godzilla minus one." Oh, but now look at this cool show that has Godzilla on the poster. Like, I'm gonna watch that. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of feeding into it. But they're just gonna keep making movies, so just keep adding to the show. You can
Yeah.
base it off of so many different monsters at this point.
Absolutely.
Maybe you'll just start a whole season of Bigfoot. I'm down with that.
Well, I did just watch this found footage Bigfoot movie that was so good called Exists.
Exists. Okay.
Angel, it's one of Angel's favorites. But Jamie Nash, who we just interviewed, he co-wrote it.
Oh, nice.
Um, you should watch it.
I'll have to. I'll add it to my list.
Add it to your
I
list.
got my whole
So many
recommendations,
things.
my followers recommendations list. I've been
Yeah.
going through it slowly but surely. Angels next. Sorry. Gotta
You
watch
know,
The Kingdom.
I got you to watch 3 seasons. Well, you were gonna watch Usher anyway,
Yeah,
but I got you to watch Goosebumps and Monarch and
Monarch.
do a whole episode about each one. And
Absolutely.
more to come, I'm sure. We'll have another show to dive into. But really appreciate you coming on and doing this again with
I
me.
love it. This is so much fun. I love being here.
Yeah. Remind everyone you're at again. You're
It is The Love for Horror on Instagram, X, Twitter.
mhm.
Um, I have a LinkedIn and my Instagram and my Twitter. I have the what is the Instagram one?
It's
What's
like the
the
same one, but it's like you mixed up the words a little
what?
bit.
No, what is the new Instagram platform?
Oh, Threads.
Threads. Yeah, I have a Threads. I literally do not use it. I'm just having it there just in case.
I like
If
Threads. I just have to remind myself to like. There's a web version of both Twitter, X, and Threads. So what I'll do is I'll copy and paste the same post.
oh,
And I
see,
just
that's I have to do because I like it's a process sometimes because I'll post on my Twitter and my Instagram
mhm.
because I make sure that I'm active on both. Posting the same thing, but it would be so much easier if I could just like go on Twitter and be like, yeah, share to my Instagram too, or vice versa.
So Meta, which owns Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, all they have more connectivity because it's
Mhm.
the same company. But X, Twitter, whatever, they make it harder
Yeah.
to catch
But
up.
yeah, I'm all there. I'm on Slasher. I use that sometimes. I do
I
have
need
a
to get
YouTube.
on that.
I do have a YouTube channel. I don't post, but I love checking out anybody's videos, and I will support honestly whatever you post as long as it's horror related. So if you want me to watch movies or read books, I have a Goodreads because I'm into reading now. So
Yay!
if there's any books that people write, I'll be down to read them, watch videos. I'm just here to support people and talk horror. That's it.
Hell yeah! Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone for watching. Let us know what you thought of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Do you want to see season 2? What did you love about season 1? What would you change for the next season? All of your thoughts, any and all, we want to hear it. Until next time, we'll think of what our next show is going to
Oh,
be.
we'll find something. Don't worry.
There's plenty out there.
Yeah.
Alrighty, take care, everyone. See you real soon.
Bye.
Also, in case you missed it in the previous video, make sure that you go check out this awesome YouTube channel called Video Tasties. The slogan is protecting the past one VHS tape at a time. These guys do a lot of media stuff. 80s list, top list, physical media, collaborations, anything movie, film related, you can find there. There's some awesome like tons of stuff for you to check out on their channel. I'll make sure to link them in the description for this episode.